Newly released US government emails about the origins of the pandemic confirm and illustrate an astonishing pattern of lies and deception. The cover-up of the virus's true origin was spearheaded by Anthony Fauci and recently retired National Institutes of Health Director Fauci Collins. It was previously revealed that certain Fauci-funded scientists had told Fauci that they were 60 to 80% sure that COVID had come out of a lab. Now, stunning new revelations from two top scientists reveal that Fauci and Collins were told that the virus's furin cleavage site, the feature that makes the virus so virulent in humans, was almost certainly created in a Wuhan lab. Hi everyone, and welcome to Truth Over News with Jeff Carlson and Hans Mamke.
The newly unredacted emails were published by House Oversight Republicans after a protracted battle with the Department of Health and Human Services over their release. The new emails show that Michael Farzan, the researcher who discovered the receptor of the original SARS virus in 2005, wrote that he was bothered by the furin site and had difficulty explaining it as an event outside the lab. Farzan noted that it was theoretically possible the virus's furin cleavage site could have arisen in nature, but that it was highly unlikely. The furin cleavage site is the defining feature which gives COVID-19 the ability to easily infect humans, and has long been puzzled over by scientists, as no such site has ever been observed in naturally occurring SARS-related coronaviruses. Farzan, like Fauci-funded scientist Christian Anderson, works at the Scripps Laboratory. As was already known from previously released emails, Anderson privately told Fauci on January 31, 2020, that the virus looked engineered. Anderson later spearheaded Fauci's efforts to promote a natural origin narrative. Farzan told Fauci's group that a likely explanation could be something as simple as the passage of live SARS coronaviruses in tissue culture on human cell lines for an extended period of time, which could lead to the accidental creation of a virus that would be primed for rapid transmission between humans.
A recent study in the science journal Nature found that COVID was uniquely and very strangely adapted to infect humans. The virus exhibits better binding to human cells than any other species, including bats. Farzan concluded that the pandemic likely originated from a lab in which live coronaviruses were passed through human-like tissue over and over. This process accelerated virus mutations, with the end result being that one of the mutated viruses may have leaked from the lab. Farzan placed the likelihood of a lab leak at 60 to 70% likely. Farzan also appears to have known that the Wuhan lab conducted their coronavirus experiments in level 2 labs, which have a very low biosecurity standard, similar to a dentist's office. Months later, in July of 2020, the Wuhan lab's director, Shi-Zheng Li, admitted that she had conducted her experiments at biosafety level 2. Astonishingly, Farzan has received grants totaling almost $20 million from the NIH, and that's just since the start of the pandemic. Further revelations come from Robert Garry, another Fauci-funded scientist from Tulane University. He told Fauci's group in no uncertain terms that I really can't think of a plausible, natural scenario where you get from the bat virus to COVID. Garry cited the remarkable coincidences that would have to occur naturally, telling the group that I just can't figure out how this gets accomplished in nature. Do the alignment of the spikes at the amino acid level. It's stunning. Garry went on to say that the genetic sequences could easily be explained if the virus had come out of a lab where scientists could generate the perfect inserts. Along the same lines of what Farzan told the group, Garry made it clear that a natural origin of the furin cleavage site was extremely unlikely, whereas creating it in a lab was easy. In the end, it doesn't really matter if the lab created the furin cleavage site through serial passage in human-like tissue or through direct insertion of the site. In either case, it would have come out of a lab.
Gary's privately stated view is even more remarkable in light of the fact that only one day earlier, on February 1st, 2020, Gary had helped to complete the first draft of the Proximal origin paper, which strongly promoted the idea that the virus had originated in nature. That paper became the media's and the public health establishment's go-to evidence for a natural origin for the COVID virus. It was published online on February 16, 2020, and firmly excluded the possibility of a lab leak. One of Gary's co-authors for the Proximal origin paper, Andrew Rambeau, is also cited in the newly redacted emails. Like Farzan and Gary, Rambeau told Fauci's group that he was also bothered by the unusual furin cleavage site. But unlike Gary or Farzan, he speculated that the virus might have arisen in another unidentified animal, a so-called intermediate host. Of course, 2 years later, no such host has been found. In the case of the original SARS virus as well as the MERS virus, the intermediate host was determined within a matter of months. Rambeau also immediately recognized the peculiar fact that the furin cleavage site insertion resulted in an extremely fit virus in humans, and noted that the virus was not optimal for transmission in bat species. Rambeau also complained about the lack of data being shared by Wuhan scientists and concluded that only the Wuhan Institute of Virology knew what had really happened.
The day after these three scientists shared their views with Fauci's group on February 3rd, 2020, Fauci attended a meeting at the National Academy of Sciences. That meeting had been urgently convened at the behest of White House Director of Science and Technology, Kelvin Droegemeier, who said that he was seeking answers about the origins of COVID-19. The meeting included a presentation by Fauci, but it was also attended by Fauci-funded scientist Christian Andersen and Peter Daszak, the person through whom Fauci had funded the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Despite having been told only a day earlier that a natural origin was highly unlikely, Fauci and his group emphatically pushed the natural origin narrative to the National Academy of Sciences. Conspicuously, Fauci and his group made no mention of their private discussions. The new emails fill some of the gaps left by previous redactions, but still only cover a small portion of the many emails that remain redacted. A close examination of the newly unredacted emails reveals that none of the usual justifications for redactions, such as private information about people or threats to sources and methods, apply. Instead, it appears that all of the redactions were made solely on the basis of shielding the NIH from scrutiny over its cover-up of the virus's origins. These efforts at obfuscation tie in with the fact that we only found out about these new emails after a months-long battle between the Department of Health and Human Services, which is the parent body of the NIH, and House Republicans. In order to obtain this information, House Republicans were forced to use an archaic law from 1928, the so-called 7-member rule. Under this little-known rule, an executive agency, such as the Department of Health and Human Services, is required to provide requested information when 7 members of the House Committee on Oversight ask for it. It is not known why Republicans have not used this law earlier or with far greater frequency.